Hello and welcome and good evening, or whatever time it is for you, as we return to Kart 1988 here at HSO. This time from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for the Escort Radar Warning 200. And I completely lost my track of speaking, but anyway, as I also lose track of that, there we go. As I said, we're here at Mid-Ohio, and with me in the booth tonight, and you may have heard him doing a bit of shifting work, as he's also driving the Yugo-sponsored Bettenhausen machine, is Dave Miller. Good evening, mate.
Good evening, Jonathan, and welcome everybody to another round of the 1988 IndyCar Championship.
And it's looking to be a stonker. Last time I checked, we had .131 covering the top 3 in the qualifying session that's ongoing in the background. That will be between Thiago Canola, David Yates and Grant Riddle. And also, just before I went live, I noticed that Grant was on a flyer, but unfortunately his engine gave up the ghost. But as we mentioned, we're at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, which is 2.4 miles, or about 3.862 kilometers in length for a full lap. And we will be going for 84 of those laps, which will equal to about 201.6 miles. One thing to be noted already is, as we have the track map up, at the very north end, as we see the track here, where there's a slight right kink on the back straight, is where the green flag will be given, not at the start-finish line that is marked on the track map here. I'd assume, because if you gave the green flag there would be all kinds of carnage in the first left-hander of the course. So technically we'll be going for 83.75 laps, I suppose.
A rough approximation of that.
Let's see, I'd assume we also want to have a quick look at the points standings going into this round 10 of the championship, where we have Thiago Canola on first position with 121 points, after I think he finished second last time out at the Meadowlands Sports Complex. That was a fantastic race, by the way. If you haven't watched it, go back after this race and watch that, because that was a lot of action. Second in the championship is David Yates, who gained a few points in the championship on Thiago Canola last time out with his win at Meadowlands. He is on 114 points, so there is a 7-point difference for the lead in the championship. Then there's a bit of a gap to Richard Coxon, who lies third on 76 points. He unfortunately isn't racing anymore in this championship due to real life getting in the way. David Junt is fourth on 60 points. He finished third, if I'm not mistaken, last time out. And Grant Riddle is 5th on 53 points, having not been able to partake in our most recent round due to a holiday in Greece, which I suppose one could somewhat agree to going for. Let's see, let's get that away. My apologies, as I just tried to get everything set up. Good evening, Billy, Angel, Berlin. Good to have you with us. Let's see if we can't get this going. Let's see, have a quick look as we're closing in on the end of qualifying. Grant Widall has actually taken the provisional pole here, sitting first for Vince Granatelli Racing. As I said, he was on a flyer earlier, so I'd assume he got another one together, and the engine held up that time around, as we can see him very squarely going through Thunder Valley, one of the very tricky corners around this track. It looks like the pace has gone up quite a bit as well. And we have, as Grant I think had another engine failure, Tiago Canola is currently on provisional second on the grid for Dick Simon Racing, and David Yakes is still third with Yunt fourth, Yannick fifth, Wilkes sixth, Hackman seventh, Whited eighth, our one race participant Mikola ninth, and Alberto Ibanez rounding out the top 10. And let's see if Dave is coming up to start a lap here, so if you wish, talk us through.
Certainly, welcome aboard the Hausen Lola. Into turn 1, it's a fourth gear, you accelerate as early as you can and carry as much speed as possible. This version we're running the chicane into turn 1, so brake down into fourth gear, keep it tight to the left, down another 2 gears. I'm afraid I don't know the name of this corner, but it's the most important on the track. It comes onto the long back straight, where you've got the power as early as you can. Up through the gears, straight just goes on and on and on, up towards the best overtaking opportunity you'll get in this lap. Brake just after the free there on the left, lock up on the right front, keep it over to the right for this tricky left-hander over the brow of the hill. Be careful the car doesn't push or snap as you've got on the throttle. Another one, tricky one there. Now accelerate over the blind crest, up towards Thunder Valley, and yes, on a better lap you don't do that. Keep it over to the right as you come up towards, I believe, the carousel. Over to the left. Back to the left for this tricky second to last corner that just goes on and on and on and on and on. On the power, accelerate through the last corner. And that's a lap of Mid-Ohio.
Thank you very much, Dave, and there we got a very graphic representation of how tricky Thunder Valley is. With a slight off there for you, and this corner here is Keyhole. I'd assume because of the chicane it looks sort of like a key, like the head of the key, and then you have the rest of the key going down both the straights here. I believe this right-hander here is called the Andretti hairpin or Andretti turn in more recent years. Back in 88 it didn't have a name. Then we're coming into the S's here, this right, left, right. And then of course Thunder Valley, this right-hander going over the crest, which is very easy, as like Dave said, in left-hander a bit early in the lap to get the car either snap or push on you, depending on what kind of luck or lack thereof you have. But it does look like Grant Widall will take the pole here for this race, so congratulations to Grant, and yeah, putting himself in a good position to try and regain some position in the championship standings. Though of course a long way from the lead, there is always the possibility of trouble for those ahead.
Indeed, like a lot of these races, it's a long race, 84 laps, over 200 miles, a lot of time to make mistakes, and on this circuit there's a lot of opportunities for it as well.
Well, there certainly is. There's probably one of those tracks where if you're consistent you will get rewarded quite heavily. Or sorry, handsomely I should say.
Certainly, it's very difficult to overtake, certainly through the middle section of the track. The main opportunity will be down that straight, so it's all about being in the right place to make the move as you break down into Andretti.
Yep, and you can also, if you are brave, try and move up at the keyhole to try and do the sort of switch back onto that back straight. And I suppose you could technically make a move in the left-hander after the back straight and right-hander there, if you get a bit of a run on the car in front. But overall, it's a very tricky to pass around here with the back and forth nature of the track. As I can now hear in the background cars getting back on track. Sorry, go ahead.
I say absolutely, Jonathan. It's I recall last year in the Can-Am race we had here having a very long battle with Timo Vermish in on paper an inferior car, but I was simply just not able to get past him. He drove a very defensive race, and even with the McLaren power, impossible.
Which of course is one of the reasons why I think pit strategy and being able to either go reasonably quickly and using little fuel and little tires, or blasting through the race like I'd assume Grant might do, will be interesting to watch, because I'd assume it'll be a 2 or a 3 stop race dependent on which of the two ways you decide to go about this event.
Agreed, it's a lot of options and it's not necessarily a right answer, so it'll be very interesting to see.
Certainly, and we can also see one of our other one-off drivers, I believe, in Cesariusz Szlapinski. Who is driving the number 88 machine for this race, as Ewa put his left side tires on the grass coming onto the back straight. But here we can still see the difference between a Cosworth, which is in the 88, and the Elmo Chevrolet in the Valvoline Anse Junior car. Because even with that mistake, Szlapinski could get nowhere near to make a move.
And that Cosworth's no slouch of an engine. It puts out nearly in the region of 650 horsepower, so it certainly can't be considered a slouch.
Indeed, but it dwindles in comparison to the Elmo Chevrolet, unfortunately. Let's see, who else do we have for this race? Trying to see if there's anyone else we missed. I don't think so in terms of drivers doing one race. Sorry, Pascal Mikkola is not a one-off driver. That was a slight error on my part. He shares the Skull Bandit machine, number 88, with Jason Fitch. And Jason, deciding not to do this race, opens up for Pascal to jump into the car, and seems like he was happy to do so, and it'll be interesting to see what he can do with that Cosworth powered, I was almost going to say heap of junk, but it's not a heap of junk. It's actually a pretty decent package overall.
Yes, that's quite a capable car there, Jonathan, and if Pascal can be consistent and keep it together, he could be in for quite a good result here, I fancy.
For sure, and I think a lot of people will have a good opportunity for a good result. With the strategic genius that Richard Wilkes possesses, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a good race, barring any issues with contact with other cars or a driver error of some kind. And here we have Bruno Chacon in his second race for the I believe it's the Gore Racing, something Gore, I think. Yeah, it's Gore Racing. At least I remember something. That's a positive. Should be said, I was at the referee refurbishment, so to speak, trying to learn some new stuff and get some updates on the old, and I may be slightly out of kilter mentally, but hopefully it will be no problem during this event. As we can see, actually David Saber quite far up here in the warm-up session, sitting third at the moment, and although over a second behind Grant and Thiago, he is slightly quicker than David Junt at the moment, and that's a very good effort from David. We've seen him have some decent races and results at the ovals, but I think that's probably the furthest we've seen him up on the road courses so far in this championship. Although we can see that Thiago with, it seems, yet again running low wings, streaking up behind David Saber on the back straight.
And on the back of this group is David Yates as well.
I'm sorry to hear that, Matthew, that you weren't able to sort out the computer and AMS situation, but I hope you'll enjoy the broadcast, and that we'll see you back for the next one. And actually David Junt now goes ahead of David Saber as well, so still he's up there or thereabouts, so that's good to see. And quite a few drivers going out there to have a go with more fuel in the cars as well. It'll make a big difference around here with all the crest and undulation changes. I think the cars can carry, is it 120 odd litres?
It's 154 litres in a tank for these cars. So they are very heavy fresh out of the pits.
Wow, that's that's a whole heap of fuel, that is.
They do burn it quite quickly though. In the Bettenhausen Lola we're burning in the region of 4.7 to 4.8 litres per lap.
Wow. That's that's interesting to hear. That may mean we have a 3 or 4 stop race, dependent on your strategy and engine situation. Let's have a quick look.
But with the Lola we're looking at about 33 laps on a tank, which I think with the Cosworth that's about middle of the road. The Judds can go a little bit further, and the Ilmors can go a little bit shorter.
Okay. So I'm just trying to get a grip of everything.
Again, slightly disappointing we don't have the Block Del Coin car again. Well, not disappointing for the poor soul who has to drive it, but I would like to see what that could do with a capable driver, at least in terms of strategy, since that would probably only need to stop once in this race.
Yeah, unfortunately we don't have the Dale coin machine here, but it would have been very interesting indeed to see what it could do around here. So I just found out, and I think you will have been able to see that on the screen as well on the broadcast, that the start will be at the official start-finish line. So hopefully everyone will take it easy and behave themselves on the opening lap, so that we get to see some good racing from everyone in this race. And so you don't remember Dave, since I know what you said earlier, if turn your voice activation back, push the talk back on.
Yep, one step ahead of you, I've already done that.
Okie dokie, good to hear.
So you won't be subjected to me cursing and swearing for the next 2 hours.
I don't think you would do that too much, mate.
Only sometimes.
Fair enough.
Just ask Mrs. Dave. She's been surprised a few times. Hello, Angel May, by the way.
She is here and watching. We'll see if, since we have a bit of a delay, she hasn't been able to answer yet, but it'll be interesting to see that reply, as we are on the grid, just waiting for the safety car to get going. We do have a time limit of 2 hours and 30 minutes, but I think we ought to be done in about 1 hour 40 if we don't have an immense amount of yellows. But anyway, on pole we have Grant Riddle for Vince Granatelli Racing. Second is Thiago Canola, leader of the championship for Dick Simon Racing. Third is David Yates, sitting second in the championship for Hemmelgarn. Fourth for Rainer Racing is David Junt, with fifth for Alex Morales Motorsports is Brian Yannick. Sixth for Richard Wilkes and Dick Simon Racing, and seventh for Jason White in the leader card racing entry. Adam Hackman lines up 8th for Craco Racing, with Pascal Mikla for Curb Racing 9th, and Alberto Ibanez for Team Penske lines up 10th. Ray Riddle is 11th for Patrick Racing, with David Sebbett 12th for Newman Haas. 13th for Sariusz Szlapinski for Pacific Summit Motorsports, and Joe Miller for the third Dick Simon entry in 14th. 15th for Jan Kowalski and the AJ Foyt Enterprises entry, the Copenhagen number 14, and Dave Miller, hello Dave, for Bettenhausen lines up 16th. Very fitting, since you have number 16 on the car as well.
This is an extra little scare. I just had to reset my steering wheel.
Oh dear.
That's right, I'd rather do it now than in the middle of the race.
Oh, very true indeed. You have Bors as 17th for Gallus Racing. 18 is Jason White for the second of the Hemmelgarn entries. Mick Chapman is 19th in the second Team Penske machine. 20th for Gerard Rion in the RCR Racing, and Bruno Chacon rounds off the grid for Gore Racing. Let's see, we are just about to come around the carousel to start the race. Let's see if everyone is able to line up relatively alright. Looks like it'll sort itself out, as we should have green flag racing going here. And the race is underway, and looks like... Oh, we have one spinner. Not entirely sure who that is. I think that may be Juha Bors.
No, Juha's on my right side.
Okay, let's see as they come around. That may have been Richard Wilkes then, he's way back down the field. As you can see the whole field coming through after the back straight. And was indeed Richard Wilkes way off the road there. I think he made up a place on the back straight. We can see Grant Vidal already opening up a tiny bit of a gap to the rest of the field. With Tiago Canola second, and he is being put under pressure by David Yates. It'll be interesting how that develops. Fourth for David Junt, fifth for Brian Yannick. Sixth is Pascal Miklas. Juha Boos looks to have at least a battle, if not a mistake. Very strange that we seem to have a bit of a... No, sorry, that's me being a bit of a... doing a bit of a mistake there, but Miller and Kowalski for 10th and 11th in a bit of a fight there. Alberto has dropped back just a tiny bit after the start. You can see how Juha Boos now ahead of Dave Miller again. Jason White getting out of the way of Richard Wilkes. Wilkes, of course, in a slightly faster car. One can most likely assume, without taking anything away from Jason, he does have the slightly inferior engine, which will make the difference down that back straight. But Grant Vidal opening up a lead. He's currently 1.7 seconds ahead of Tiago Canola, who's still under pressure from David Yates. So we're heading on to lap 3. Ooh, as David Yates has a big moment coming onto the start-finish straight. It looks like Tiago has a very good run off the keyhole, and that helps him to stay ahead of David Yates, at least for the time being. It'll be interesting to see what happens when the tyre wear kicks in. At least for now it looks like David Yates is slightly quicker on the entry of the corners. Ooh, I see. Don't think that was a try to move up the inside, but it looked a little bit close. We can see David Sebras made a fantastic start. He started 12th, it's already up into 7th. And Pascal Mikla as well has made a good start, up into 7th. Sorry, 6th. So some big movers already. Was Alberto Ibanez makes a bit of a mistake, puts 2 tires on the grass going towards the carousel, and Shlapinski goes around his outside. As you can see here, Richard Wilkes now behind Dave Miller, looking for a way past or a way to close in first and foremost. You see that Dave making just a tiny bit of a mistake, running a little bit wide. As we can see, that's Juha Boos off the road in the chicane. As I think Dave had a bit of a wheel spin coming onto the back straight, and Richard Wilkes needs no second invitation. Looks up the inside. It looks like the position is secured. A bit further up the field we can see Alberto and Jason White in a fight, and up ahead we can see Shlapinski and Kowalski and Joe Miller in a fight for 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th and 14th for Jason White. It's a nice little snake line of cars here. As Alberto has a slight bit of a lock-up going into the carousel. But just like previously, there isn't many places to find a way past. was Kowalski, I think, made a move into turn 1. Now that was a fantastic move, going up the inside into turn 1. Let's have another look at that on the replay. He had a good run coming off the last corner and gets up the inside, and Joe very sportingly leaves him enough room up the inside, and Kowalski takes the position fair and square. It looks like the gap between first and second has stabilized itself a little bit, but it's just over 2 seconds now as Grant does the fastest lap of the race at the 1:14.5. It's a very impressive lap this early in the run. I think the pole time was a low 12. We can see David Yates sitting right behind Canola, going through the keyhole once again, but Canola has a really good run and presumably running lower wing helps him quite a lot down this back straight. Of course, in terms of the championship, all he really needs is to finish the race and preferably ahead of David Yates. And I think he'll be fairly happy with that. Was both of them a little bit sideways coming over the brow ahead of Thunder Valley. Yeah, it looks like it's fairly spread out in areas, and then we get groups like this where we have side by side going through and into the carousel here between Miller and Joe Miller and Cesare Shlapinski. And it looks like it's another 4-way scrap for, I think that's 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th between Mikola, Saber, Hackman and Ray Rideau. About a second behind them at the moment is Jan Kowalski, but I think he is actually closing in on these drivers as Ray has a look up the inside of Adam Hackman on at the end of the back straight, but Hackman brakes later and stays ahead for now. We can hear here with Ray Rideau and Patrick racing with the Ilmo Chevrolet how careful he is. Trying to apply the power coming over these crests. Really having to hold back and be careful as to not have a lot of wheel spin and risk spinning, as it looks like Pascal was a little bit deep in the carousel, but still gets a good bit of speed onto the start-finish straight to retain his 6th place position for now. But as I mentioned, Jan Kowalski closing in on the cars in front, now sitting right behind Ray already. So he definitely has that AJ Foyt Enterprises machine going really well here, whilst he puts 2 tires on the grass coming out of the keyhole. When he actually has a look up the inside at the end of the back straight, but decides against it and stays behind for now. Oh, and a tiny error from Pascal, but I don't think Saber is able to make any use of it right now. Oh, Saber has a bit of a loose moment as well. Ends up a little bit wide, but is able to get back in line. On Kowalski looking up the inside, going into turn 1. On Ridol Senior, looks like Ray is able to hold on for now, but he is being held up by the looks of things by Adam Hackman, who himself got held up a little bit by David Saber. Well, it does look like Juha Bors is struggling. I think he's made another tiny error, because I see him a few places back from where he was, as Jan Kowalski goes up the inside at the end of the back straight, takes the position away from Ray Ridol. Very nice clean move from Jan, and now he sets his eyes on Adam Hackman to try and take 8th away from him. And a bit of a lonely 5th at the moment is Brian Yannick. Maybe another quiet but consistent drive from him, if one is to look at previous rounds. Currently 12.5, make that 13 seconds ahead of the group behind, but 5 to 5.5 seconds behind David Junt, who himself is in a somewhat lonely 4th position. It looks like Thiago Canola has broken away from David Yates as well, but still losing time to Grant Ridol little by little every lap. But back to the fight here for a lower top 10 positions, as Schlapinski has also closed up to this group. Not too far behind either is both Joe Miller and Richard Wilkes, with a very good recovery drive so far. He's gotten by Alberto Ibanez and Jason Whiten in the last few laps. Which I noticed a little bit wide was Jan Kowalski at the end of the back straight, and he loses the position he took just a few moments ago, just a lap ago, from Ray Ridol. Let's see what happened here. Ooh, he puts a tire a little bit on the grass, and that's all it takes to outbrake yourself, and Ray takes the position away right away. And now of course Kowalski has Schlapinski for close company as well.
Big crash in Thunder Valley.
Oh dear me. Oh, there's car parts and everything. Oh, that's Alberto Ibanez. Oh no. I see. Oh, he hits the inside curb going in, and then he hits the curb again. Oh, it's actually Richard. Oh, dearie me. That's really unfortunate. Well, that was actually Richard Wilkes who had spun a little bit earlier. So let's see what happened there. So Richard Wilkes right behind Joe Miller. Joe Miller has been on the grass at some point. Oh, he has a bit of a slide coming over the crest there, and Richard tries to get out of the way, but Alberto decides to go to the right side, and unfortunately contact is made between the two, and now Richard Wilkes is trying to soldier on without the front wing, and unfortunately Alberto out of the race. Dear me, that's really unfortunate for both of them. Oh, and Pascal makes a bit of a mistake, puts 2 wheels outside the curb, and he makes contact with the wall at Thunder Valley as well. I think he will have to make a pit stop to fit a new front wing. And he heads to the pit lane straight away. Certainly unfortunate, but mistakes does happen over a full race, so hopefully the repairs won't take too long to be done. Well, that of course releases David Saber, and he can now try to catch back up those now 18 seconds to Brian Yannick, who is currently in 5th. And now Richard Wilkes makes his way into the pits as well for repairs to his stricken machine. Well, it looks like actually Thiago Canola now starting to close in on Grant Ridol. So maybe Grant won't have this race all his own, like it may have looked very early on. Maybe he overheated his tires a little bit and he's paying for it now. But Grant, of course, was leading this race back in 2017 in R Factor when we did this event. I think in the end he had engine troubles, which meant he didn't win the race, but he led it for, I think, 60 or 70 odd laps. But so far so good, and hopefully we can get some good racing for the win here, and just like we've had for placings elsewhere in the field so far. As Schlapinski, I think, may have made a tiny error. He's a little bit further behind the group ahead than he was previously. But fairly strong out, so it is that fight for what is now 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. That is still the closest on the track. So let's ride on board with Schlapinski for a few laps here and see what happens. See a little bit side by side up ahead, but no position change, just a question of showing the driver in front of you. That would have been Hackman on Ray Riddle. Kind of, I'm here, don't forget about me. Kind of like the shy little old lady tapping you on the shoulder. A little bit like, don't forget about me, I'm still here. As you can see, David Saber actually being closed in on by guys behind. So while David had some good pace in the warm-up, looks like he's looking a bit too much in his rearview mirrors at for the time being. Whereas Kowalski has a little bit of a slip going over the crest at Thunder Valley. And again wide, going towards the carousel. And that's all it takes really to have half a lap of trying to get rid of the dirt on the tires. So Kowalski will have to be a little bit careful going through this left-hander. Looks like he was able to make that work. Owen Hackman with a very awkward line going into the chicane. It keeps up with Ray Riddle, and now David Saber is breaking away just a little bit as Ray is put under more pressure by Hackman behind. Kowalski, of course, and Schlapinski hang around to try and take advantage. There may have been a little bit of contact between Kowalski and Hackman, as Kowalski goes up the inside and Schlapinski, I think, broke on the grass a little bit and had a bit of a moment as well at the end of the back straight, but position changed. Kowalski up into 8th, Hackman back into 9th. We can see everyone's rear end heading all over the place in this fight. All of them going hammer and tongs and having to hold on for bits of the lap. It looks like as soon as Ray is able to not look in the rearview mirrors, he is a little bit quicker than what David Saber is, because now he's right up behind Dave again, going through the keyhole. And of course both of these cars with the Ilmor Chevrolet, it's the Cosworth for the cars following them. As Kowalski has a bit of an opportunity to try and go around outside going into the S's. That's not a normal overtaking point, as Kowalski has a big moment going over the crest in the S's and through Thunder Valley. David said with a bit of a gap, and Hackman now having to hold Schlapinski behind him. Both of them dropping back a little bit from the duo in front. And Riddle with a lot of understeer going through the carousel. And still the battle rages on. Let's see, Ray has a bit of a run. As Acerclinth going for the move. Oh, but Kowalski may look for it. He is trying around outside there as well. Jan really wants to get on with this race. Would seem he feels he's quicker than both of the cars in front, but as we've mentioned before, there is... Oh, it's Brian Yannick unfortunately is out. Dear me, what happened? Oh, it looks like he's lost a wheel somewhere. Ah, it's a Thunder Valley as well. I'd assume he will have hit the curb coming through here. Well, that looked very strange. It almost looks like that's an engine failure seizing up the rear end. That was very strange indeed. But either way, unfortunately, he is out of race. Richard Wilkes is unfortunately a retiree as well. Here comes Pascal Mikolas to... Okay, he has one more lap to go up into 19th. Looks like Grant once again has opened up a bit of a gap to Canola. Yates in third, dropping back. Maybe feeling that going hell for leather for the time being isn't the way to go. Maybe looking at a strategic option instead. Junt currently sitting behind Jason White, going through the keyhole. I'd assume him to fly by on the back straight as he goes up the inside here, and will go by. Very nicely done by Jason to open up the exit for Junt to go up the inside. And then we have the fight now for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. Still going on between Saber, Ray Riddle, Kowalski, Hackman, Schlapinski, and it looks like we may have Jason Whited joining in the fray as well, who of course moved up to 10 with the unfortunate demise of Brian Yannick. Was Kowalski... Oh dear me, here comes the move around outside for Ray Riddle. Kowalski tried for a move twice and got boxed in, but now he has... Oh dear me! Wow, that was a wild moment. Looks like Kowalski... Will he actually go around outside there? He does, so Saber, unfortunately for him, loses 2 positions. So from 5th to 7th, as Kowalski and as both Riddle and Kowalski went round outside of David Saber. Now Kowalski looking for a move at Ray Riddle. Oh dear me, as I try to find my way there. Here we go. And how close do you want it? Right up the gearbox was Jan Kowalski through the carousel. Jason White just a little bit further behind, but he ain't far away from picking up the draft and joining the battles. As it'll now be interesting to see if Ray Riddle can pull away, but it looks like Kowalski has quite a bit of straight line speed, and he has to run now. Looking for the move, going for the outside move. Oh, if he pulls that off, that's a fantastic move. Oh, he has the inside up into here. We have seen him go around outside in this right-hander coming up here before. Oh, and he does! What a fantastic move. Oh, Kowalski has a bit of a sideways moment, but he stays ahead. Oh, what a move by Jan. Fantastic. Up into 5th for Jan Kowalski with an awesome move around outside. As I unfortunately drop a few frames. Okay, looks like my internet has decided to play ball again. My apologies for that. On that note, I have fiber on the way. It's right outside the house. It just needs to be installed. So hopefully, for within the next 2 or 3 weeks, you will be getting 720 broadcasts from me as well. Anyway, back to the action. Kowalski has been able to stay ahead. Ray Riddall in 6th, Saber 7th, Hackman 8th, Stapinski 9th, and Whitehead remains in 10th. Let's have a quick look through the field. We have, of course, Grant still leading, now 6 seconds ahead. Theo Canola, having just made his way past Pascal Mikla, is in 2nd. David Yates is currently in 3rd. 4th for David Junt, another steady drive from him so far. Jan Kowalski, as we saw with a fantastic move around side of Ray Riddall a lap ago, or maybe 2 laps ago by now, sits 5th, with Ray Riddall of course 6th, Saber 7th, Hackman 8th, Shlapinski 9th, and Jason Whitehead rounding out the top 10. 11th is Joe Miller, possibly with a tiny bit of damage to the rear end, hopefully nothing major, and he's able to drive on. 12th for Mick Chapman in the remaining Team Penske machine, the Miller High Life sponsored car. Dave Miller currently sitting in 13th with quite a bit of a gap to Gerard Rion in 14th. Juha Boos in 15th, so still going, but clearly having trouble getting to grips with the car and track combination. Bruno Chacon is currently sitting in 16th. 17th for Jason White. Hopefully Jason and Bruno will be able to have another good scrap like they had for a few laps, I want to remember, at Meadowlands. Pascal Mikla currently 18th, 3 laps behind the leader, 1 lap behind Jason White. Brian Yannick, Richard Wilkes and Alberto Ibanez is unfortunately our retirees for this race. And now Ray Riddall. Oh, Kowalski must have made a mistake. Where's Jan? Oh, Jan Kowalski all the way back in 13th. Oh, he actually pitted. Already? That's very interesting. So 23 laps. Well, that is.
Seems a little early unless he's trying to go off strategy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's about a quarter of the way through the race. So unless he is running a lower fuel strategy per stint to save on the weight, as you say, he's just trying to get a little bit of strategy and try to use the pace.
Canola's spun in the carousel.
Oh, that's Juha Boos with another spin, unfortunately. Looks like that's at Thunder Valley, actually. As he gets going, very nicely waits for everyone to get past, as I'd assume he makes contact with... Or he hits the inside curb there and settles the car, reaches the outside curb and spins off. Oh, and he actually makes quite hefty contact with the barrier as well. Good thing the Gallus team builds their car strong, but From a little bit we've been on board here, looks like he has quite a bit of damage to rear end. Hopefully the team will be able to repair that, but could be a very long evening, or even longer evening ahead for Juha, if he has to drive with a damaged car. But that looks like that promotes Dave up into 12th, Chapman up into 11th, Jan Kowalski came out 13th out of the pits, so that will have been when Brian Eric retired. Gerard Rio up into 14th, Chacon 15th, White 16th. Juha in the pits for his repairs, Pascal Mikla 18th, and he is our last placed runner for the time being. And Grant actually enjoying a 14-second lead now to David Yates, so Thiago Canola has been in the pits. So possibly running lower fuel to get speed out of the car for both Canola and Kowalski. Or simply using more fuel. Either way, it looks like both Ray Riddle and David Saber is able to use their pace as well now that they are a bit more spread out. Slapinski 7th, Hackman 8th, Whited 9th. And currently Joe Miller rounding out the top 10. As Grant Riddle heads into the pits, and that promotes David Yates into the lead. Actually, it'll be interesting to see. Thiago Canola comes around now. So either Canola was in the pit, so he made a mistake. Because now Ray Riddle.
Spin in the carousel, Jonathan.
Oh, we had a spin in the carousel. Oh, dearie me. So drive error from Thiago, very unusual, at least in this championship. And I don't think I've seen him do many drive errors ever, really. So I'm very surprised by that, as he now tries to put a move on Pascal Mikla once again, and Pascal very nicely stays out of the way there. Looks like Thiago is struggling with the tire wear on that car. He's pushing it quite hard by the looks of things, and the tires aren't quite wanting to do it that way. I assume. Okay, so David Yates continues for another lap. But since we have a little bit of a lull in the race, let's have a quick look at the trivia questions so you can have something to ponder while the race continues. As we can see there, you are both still in the pits, unfortunately. But the question we have for you this evening is from 1982. Who purchased and then made substantial improvements to the Mid-Ohio sports car course? Was it A. Roger Penske, B. Jim Truman, or C. Les Griebling? I think that name is supposed to be pronounced. As we can see, I think that's Joe Miller in the background into the pits. Could also be. Let's see, it's David Yates now into the pits, and I think that is Joe Miller indeed. Looks like Yates. David Junt is in Yates' grid slot. That's really unfortunate. And Boss now retires, but that loses David Yates a lot of time. As I missed to put the view back on. There we go. So actually, to let you see what's just happened, David Yates trying to push that, unfortunately, Juha Boos out of the pit slot to try and get into his own. That's very unfortunate, but that is what it is, as David Yates now comes out of the pits, 24 seconds behind Grant Woodall, 35 seconds behind Thiago Canola and David Junt. I wonder if Canola's made another mistake because he's behind David Junt now. That's very unfortunate for David Yates, but I suppose it's one of those. As long as he's able to stay ahead of Thiago Canola, he will be at least not too frustrated with that. But hopefully he'll be able to keep his head on and keep digging and get something done either way. As we can see, with all the pit stops still ongoing, Dave Miller makes his way up into 8th. Jason Whited 9th. Jan Kowalski 10th. After his early pit stop, and now looking for a move on Jason Whited. Going up the inside on the back straight, and looks like Whited more or less not wanting to put the fight on for now. And Kowalski up into 9th. Joe Miller 11th at the moment, with Chacon 12th. Jason White 13th. Diandrio 14th. Cesare Slapinski is unfortunately another retiree. Let's see if we can have a quick look at what happened. Seems like it will have been a little while ago, unfortunately, so we won't be able to get that. Pascal Mikla is up into 16th. Mick Chapman, unfortunately, has also retired, as did Juha Boos, deciding to get out of the way of David Yates, so David could keep his race going. And of course our earlier retirees being Yannick, Wilkes and Ibanez Senior. So David Junt still holding on to the lead here, running very long into the race. Grant 2nd, Thiago out of the pits in 3rd. So despite the spin he had earlier, that's how much David Yates lost in time. Currently 1.2 seconds behind Thiago Canola. So despite the mistake Canola made, Yates is back in the position he was in a few laps ago. So let's ride on board with David Yates for a little bit here, see if he can close in on Canola and make use of his warmer tires. As he now closes up right behind Thiago Canola in the fight for 3rd and 4th for the time being. As David Junt is out of the pits a few seconds ahead of them, was Canola, I think, missed a gear there. Was David Yates tries to look up the inside. Canola ran a little bit wide at keyhole, but yet again Canola gets a good run onto the back straight. But now David Yates is close enough, looks up the inside. And there we go, position taken. Yates up into 3rd. And now he'll chase after David Junt to try and take back 2nd from him. Oops, my apologies. There we go. Let's see, save. Let's see. I think everyone will more or less have pitted now. So quickly run through the grid. Grant Vidal retains his first position. Now with David Junt as his closest contender, 19 seconds behind. Junt himself, a steady drive, no histrionic so far, and making use of others' misfortune, so to speak. David Yates currently third, closing in on David Junt for second, and Tiago Canola a further 1.5 seconds behind in fourth. Fifth, David Saber. Sixth for Ray Riddle, so a slightly quicker stop by the looks of things for David Saber's crew. Jan Kowalski just made his way past Adam Hackman, going around outside, so up into 7th for Kowalski, 8th for Hackman. Jason Whitehead currently in 9th, about 2 seconds behind as Pascal Mikla gets out of the way very sportingly there. Joe Miller currently sitting in 10th, and Dave Miller, I think we had a bit of a spinner. Possibly.
Stop.
Yep. So Dave Miller coming out of the pits here in 11th. And you really need to give those the Yugo company some lashback for putting such heavy stickers on your car.
Well, after the nasty things we said about them last time, I'm amazed they gave us more money.
To be fair, you and your team said nothing, us broadcasters did. 12th currently for Bruno Chacon, about 5 seconds behind Dave Miller, so that could be a fight in the making possibly. 13th for Jason White, further about 12 seconds behind Bruno Chacon. Jean Rion, 14th. 15th for Pascal Mikla. I think he may have been the spinner going into the S's, as he has another big moment going through there. So maybe running with a little bit of damage, causing some troubles. And then we have our retirees, unfortunately, with Shlapinski, Chapman, Bos, Yannick Wilkes and Ibanez. It actually looks like David Junt, for the time being, is able to keep the gap to David Yates. So very good effort from David Junt at the moment. We can always expect him to be consistent, if maybe not always the quickest driver out on track. And I think we instead will jump on board with Jan Kowalski for a lap or two here, see if he can close in on Ray Riddle. As I think he may have missed a gear a little bit there. And actually, in terms of this track, the run through the chicane, as in the straight line through past the chicane, was added, I believe, in 1989. So that's why we are using the chicane layout and not the straight cut layout of Mid-Ohio. And I suppose it was added for the sort of lesser formulas, maybe, to allow them to have one more passing opportunity around this track, with a straighter line going into the keyhole. Though I obviously aren't entirely sure.
Although the chicane is still there, we don't see it used these days, from what I can tell.
I think the United Sports Car Championship still use the chicane for the I think it's the GT cars that visit Mid-Ohio, since I think they came here last year and this year, and I think they used the chicane, but as you say, widely not used anymore, presumably because of the one less passing opportunity on a already difficult to pass on track.
I think I just went past David Yates at the side of the road on the back straight.
Oh dear me. Oh, he is going slowly. Oh dear me, he's lost a rear wing. Oh, whatever happened here? Oh, he's lost it early. What? Oh dear, he went way too quick through the chicane. So into the chicane, left-hander taking it a little bit too quickly, I think. And then just straight off the road and into the barrier. So unfortunately, David Yates retires. Oh dear me, that's really unfortunate, both for him and for the prospect of a really close championship. Because unless Thiago retires as well, Thiago will gain a lot of points in the championship. That's so incredibly unfortunate. I suppose some people will be happy with that. Ray Riddle makes his way up into 4th with that. As he recently went past David Saber. Saber down 1 position, but still remains in 5th. 6th for Jan Kowalski, up 1 position, and still closing in on Ray Riddle and David Saber, if only little by little. Adam Hackman 7th, Jason White at 8th now. Joe Miller 9th, up from 10th. And Dave Miller makes his way up into the top 10 as well, so looking promising from where I'm sitting, mate.
Just trying to keep it consistent and steady.
Sounds like the plan to have. Gerard Rion up into 11th. Bruno Chacon will be up into 12th as he passes the location of David Yates' unfortunate retirement. Jason White will soon make it up into 13th. Pascal Mikela will be up into 14th. And he remains our final runner in this race, as we are 1 lap away from half distance. Bergant, of course, still enjoying a massive lead. David Junt now is in a slightly more secure second place. Although it looks like Tiago Canola is closing in. By a little bit. And now Jan Kowalski right behind David Saber. There we go, finally finding the camera. So let's ride on board here with the suspension tire cam, looking back at Jan Kowalski and see if he can make a move on David Saber to make his way up into the top 5. Kowalski has a big run, looks up the inside. Oh, and there's actually contact, and Kowalski has a half spin. Remains in control of the car, keeps it, or gets it back straight, and remains in 6th for the time being. Ooh, bit of understeer there. I wonder if he may have picked up just a little bit of damage. Or if it was just him trying a little bit too hard. Looks fine through Thunder Valley, so presumably his car is okay. That was a very late move by Jan, so I don't think there's any bad blood between either of them. It's one of those situations where you need to turn in at some point for that right-hander at the end of the back straight. Oh, and I believe David Saber missed a gear. That may be all Kowalski needs to have a go. Looks like it will be, as Kowalski now flies past down the straight. Saber trying to get it back on the brakes, but unable to do so, and Kowalski up into the top 5. And it'll now be interesting to see, first and foremost, if he can break away from David Saber. David, of course, having a few more ponies in his power plant. Oh, and now with Rio gets out of the way very hastily there. Oh, as Kowalski makes a bit of a mistake in the keyhole, runs wide. That may mean David Saber has an opportunity. But Saber again slow off the keyhole, possibly missing a gear once again. Maybe some gearbox issues for David Saber. So it looks like that position is more or less decided for now. Adam Hagman not too far behind, around 2 seconds, as he makes room for David Junt to go past. He is invited another 2 seconds behind in 8th, and there's a bit of a gap of about 15 seconds to Joe Miller, and then a further 26 odd seconds to Dave Miller, who himself has just under 39 seconds to Gerard Riot. and 24 seconds to Bruno Chacon, who has 12 seconds on Jason White, who has 55 odd seconds. I'd assume that is to Pascal Mikla indeed, who is into the pits once again. I think that is at the end of his fuel load, since he was forced into a very early pit stop for repairs.
Just got a message that Grant Riddell's dropped out, Jonathan.
Oh dearie me! Oh no! Oh, he has had a crash as well. Whatever is going on in this race? See, Grant Riddell, just a little bit too much throttle on, hits the barriers coming out of the right-hander at the end of the back straight, loses his rear wing, goes around the next corner, and I don't think he realized he lost his rear wing, slides off and takes the rear left off the car as well and is forced into retirement. Oh dearie me. And that just shows the tiniest bit of an error. It only takes a moment's lack of concentration around this track and it bites you. It bites your head off. Dear me, that's really unfortunate for Grant as well. He was having a very good race and looked like he had a very good lead. So that promotes David Junt into the lead of this race. And I think, if I'm not entirely mistaken, he was the one to profit from Grant's misfortune around this track in 2017 as well. As Kowalski gets out of the way of Junt there. And now really under pressure from David Saber. And that of course promotes Ray Riddell up into third position. Not sure that's how Riddell Senior would have wanted to get on up onto a possible podium, but unfortunately these kind of incidents happen. Kowalski of course up into fourth with that, and David Saber back up into fifth once again, with Adam Hackman up into sixth, seventh for Jason Whited, eighth for Joe Miller, ninth now for Dave Miller, and Gerard Rion will shortly be up into the top 10. Bruno Chacon will be 11th, Jason White will be 13th, 12th, and Pascal Mikla will be 13th in a couple of laps time. But I shall just take a quick break. I'll be back in a minute or two. In the meantime, I will leave you looking at turn 1 so you can see the drivers going by and hopefully be able to make out who is leading by the timer on the left hand side of the screen. We can see that Thiago is closing in a little bit on David Junt at the moment, but I think that fluctuates a little bit with lappings as well. But anyway, I'll be back in a minute or two's time. Okay, so I'm back. Sorry for being away for a few moments. I had to check out on a little thing. It's getting cold here in Sweden, so I had to double check the temperature, and with that put some firewood in the furnace. But anyway, back into the action we go, and WN still in the lead of course, but the lead has been reduced a little bit to 1.5 seconds now, to Thiago Canola in second. As we can see, Grant's rear wing is still on the track there. Jan Kowalski sits in third, so he's gotten by Ray Riddle. Looks like Ray will have been in the pits while I've been away. But of course Jan Kowalski is a lap behind the leading duo, so unless something happens to the drivers in front, I think that's the best Jan will be able to do tonight, but that'll be plenty good enough. Jan has struggled a little bit in this series from the top of my memory, but this is a very strong and hopefully good showing if it remains as it is for Jan. Fourth for David Saber, holding on just ahead of Adam Hackman and Jason Whited, so let's actually jump on board with Jason Whited here as he struggles to get on the power coming off the keyhole. We can see in front Hackman trying to keep up with David Saber down the back straight. Let's see, while Jason White will drop back a little bit, looks like Adam could have an opportunity on David at the end of the back straight. We tries to break up the inside, but David has that covered. Hackman trying to go around outside. Owen isn't left much room, but I think there will have been just about enough. But unfortunately for Hackman, he loses out to Whited, so Whited up into 5th. With Hackman back to 6th. Yeah, really bad luck, Grant. As you can see, Jason Whited making a tiny mistake there, I think, but he has some good speed down the straight and pulls ahead. But Hackman with the inside line might be able to outbrake him. Whited still on the inside. Hackman running around outside in that left-hander and retakes 5th position from Jason Whited. Some really good battling there. Nice clean racing. As White there makes another tiny error. Well, it looked a little bit scary, but it lost him a bit of time, but I don't think it will. It should be counted as a big one. Jan Kowalski back to 7th, so Saber currently sitting in 3rd now, with Kowalski pitting. Kowalski about 16 seconds behind Ray Riddle after the pit stop. And with 28 laps to go, I think that may be a slightly tall order to make it on one tank of fuel. So Jan Kowalski may be forced to do a splash and dash before the end of the race.
Not sure if you're picking it up, Jonathan, but the lead battle's just gone past me, nose to tail, for Canola and Yunt.
Oh dear, yeah, that is very much true. David Yunt now really under pressure from Tiago Canola. Thank you very much, Dave. So let's see what kind of pressure Tiago can put David under. David very rarely cracks under pressure, but it has happened in the past, so it will be very interesting to watch this battle for the next few laps before the last pit stop. When Tiago, look at that run out of the keyhole. As Yunt is a little bit late on the moving over to the inside by the looks of things. Tiago had a good run. But I think Tiago will be savvy to that next time round. Technically hard but fair, because Tiago had no overlap, but Tiago, instead of hitting Yunt in the back, decided to take to the grass, so close call, but both of them are able to continue and keep the battle going for another few laps at least. As Mikola gets put another lap down by David Yunt. It looks like David may have put a wick up. He's opened up a bit of a gap to Canola now. The gap now back up into those almost 1.5 seconds we saw a few, like 4 or 5 laps ago. As we have 24 laps remaining. So it looks like this battle is sort of settled for the very moment, and it looks like Ray Riddle is opening up the gap to Jan Kowalski as Joe Miller gets out of the way of the lead battle. And I believe that will have been Tiago Canola diving into the pits for his final pit stop. He is indeed. Now notice the second car in the pits, that's Gerardo Jo in for his final pit stop. I'm fairly confident to call it the final pit stop now with 24 laps to go. So this will be interesting to see how quick can Tiago Canola be coming out to the pits, and how quick can David Yunt's last few laps be, as David Saber heads into the pits, and that promotes Adam Hackman up into the podium positions being third for now. Ray Riddle makes his way past David Sabre for effective third position. Just Adam Hackman left to make it into the pits. And I wonder if Ray Riddle may be a little bit close on fuel as well, considering he's in the Elmore Chevrolet, but I suppose time will tell towards the end of the race. Jan Kowalski up into 5th as David Sabre rejoins the race in 6th. 10 odd seconds. Make that 9 odd seconds ahead of Jason Whitehead, who has Joe Miller for somewhat close company, 5 seconds behind. And 10 seconds behind, but in the pits is Dave Miller for his final pit stop. And Pascal Mikler coming out of the pits after his final pit stop. 13th. Still our last car running. As Dave Miller leaves the pits. See, I heard someone coming into the pits. That's Adam Hackman, so that promotes Ray Riddle back into the podium paying position of 3rd place. Jan Kowalski will be up into 4th. Still a great result for Jan if he is able to stay there until the end of the race. Adam Hackman rejoins the racetrack, 5th, but David Sabre isn't that far behind, so David Sabre may be able to make his way past down the back straight, depending on what kind of run Adam Hackman can get coming out of the keyhole. He has to run, possibly turn the boost up as well, as he looks like it was very easily makes his way up into 5th position ahead of Adam Hackman. And Bruno Chacon actually with Gerard Rion for close company. But I'm not sure Bruno Chacon has pitted for his final pit stop yet, so still some positions to play out before the end of the race. And it actually looks like up ahead that Thiago Canola has taken over the lead from David Junt after the pit stops. If I'm not mistaken. I think David Junt will have pitted this time by. He did indeed, and that promotes Thiago Canola up into the lead. So some very good quick laps from Canola coming out of the pits here. So let's see what David Junt can do in the next few laps to try and regain the time lost. Looks like David Juntas closed in by a few tenths on that lap. Let's see if we can continue doing that for the next few laps, and with that we could have a really close fight for the win of this race, with 19, I think, laps to go. Because it does look like most of the other positions are pretty much decided. It could still get very close and heated between Sabre and Hackman for the final position in the top 5. But for the time being, let's ride on board with David Junt and see if he can close up on Thiago Canola and retake the lead. As Thiago now gets slightly held up by Bruno Chacon in the chicane, and that allows Junt to close in 1.4 odd seconds, I think. Now sitting half a second behind Canola, going on to the back straight. That was very fortunate for David Junt that the traffic worked his way this time around. Oh, as he dives up the inside there, that's very optimistic indeed. Tiny bit of contact, but I don't think there will be any damage sustained for either from that situation. Oh, as David runs a little bit wide coming out of Thunder Valley. Drops about 8 tenths doing that. And with some dirty tires on his car as well. Was David Junt, I think, missed a gear. But it does looks like Canola is running slightly less wing as he's done in the last few road course races, as he is able to pull the gap going through sector 1, but then sector 2 and 3 it feels like David Junt is a little bit stronger, possibly running more wing, allowing him to run with a slightly quicker mid-corner speed. Of course, Canola very, very strong, getting the power to the road and firing out of the slightly slower corners. And Junt that lap running 2 tenths of his optimal pace, so presumably both of them trying very hard indeed right here. And Ray Riddall looks to have either had another pit stop or made a mistake, because Kowalski is up into 3rd place. So maybe Ray was forced into a splash and he decided to take it now. I'm not entirely sure, as I didn't catch it on the timing. But Kowalski up into 3rd, so a possible podium finish for Jan here. I think he will be extremely happy with that. I think Ray will still be happy with 4th, but I'm fairly sure he will be wanting to catch back up to Jan Kowalski and retake that 3rd position. And David Sabre not that far behind in 5th, with another second back to Adam Hackman. White at 7th, Joe Miller 8th, Dave Miller 9th, Gerard Rion in 10th, Bruno Chacon 11th. Just shortly behind Rion, Jason White 12th, and Pascal Mikolas a final runner in 13th. Back up to the front of the field, we can see here, still very close between the two. For the win of this race, 6/10 going down the back straight. David having a bit of a trial of braking, I think, there at the carousel, seeing how late he can brake, putting himself in the mirror of Giaconola going down into turn 1. And actually putting Thiago a little bit off, but David Junt runs wide and drops a little bit of pace as well. Canola running just a little bit deep in the keyhole, but gets I'd assume a good run off the corner. He does indeed. And remains a little bit ahead of David Junt. David Junt again putting himself in the mirror of Giaconola there, trying to put him under as much pressure as he can possibly do. And we may see if David Junt can get a good run here. Canola is able to stay tight enough. I think David may have had a bit of a ascended there, had Thiago not stayed as tight, and Junt again filling up the mirrors of Thiago Canola wherever he can to try and force Thiago into a bit of a mistake. It's a little bit deep here, but gets the car stopped for the keyhole. And again is able to get a run off that corner with 13 laps to go. But here comes David Junt with a fantastic run up the inside at the end of the back straight, and he goes ahead. Very good move from David Junt. Up the inside, minimal contact, and he retakes first place. Just having a quick look, looks like Ray is closing in slowly on Jan Kowalski. Looks like everyone else is very much spread out. We do have a fairly close run here between Chacon and Jason White. Still close to one another, but not close enough to have a wing-to-wing, tire-to-tire battle. Partly due to the lap traffic forcing them to be a little bit cautious and trying to stay out of the way of the faster cars. Being trouble for both of them. It looks like Canola isn't going to give this race up just yet. Still staying fairly close to David Junt, who has a big sideways moment before the carousel right-hander, and then another sideways moment going through the carousel. So really trying to put all of those horses to the ground with 11 laps to go. When the round outside tries Canola, then to the back straight, not able to make it work, make it happen there. Looks for a bit of a cut back, not able to make that work either, and has to stay behind until next time they go down the back straight, I think, unless Junt makes a mistake. Let's see, now with some lap traffic as well to contend with. That's Jason White in the Hemmelgarn entry, the yacht-powered car, staying on the racing. Ooh, stayed wide on the racing line. Looked more scary than it was, I think, because Canola was considering an outside move on David Junt there. So that's one more lap, more or less secured for David. 10 to go. Or 9 to go at the end of this race. This lap. Canola with a tiny bit of an error at the carousel that time round. Ran in a little bit shallow. And understeered a little bit wide. When both of them tiny bit wide, I think Canola was a little bit wider than Junt was. And again, a good run onto the back straight. I think he's a bit too far behind to get a run on Junt. So it seems Junt stays safe for one more lap still. The fight is definitely on here. Have a quick look. Very close between. Oh no, there's actually been contact! Whatever happened here? Ray spinning and rolling back. Oh, tries to do a flick spin and Hackman has nowhere to go. Oh no. So Ray Riddle is out. What about Hackman? Hackman going round on 3 wheels. And understeers off. I don't think he will be finishing either. Looks like he is getting ready to retire here. He does indeed. So that's very unfortunate. Very late in the race. Less than 10 laps to go. Both Hackman and Ray Riddle out of the race. Oh dearie me. Dearie me. It's very unfortunate, but that more or less secures Jan a 3rd place finish, I think. I don't believe David Sabre is quick enough to challenge him. And here's some White with a bit of a spin now. So our driver is getting a little bit tired, I think. This track, of course, very demanding. You need to stay on top of your game all the way around on all the 84 laps. Luckily for Jason, no damage sustained, but he loses a position to Joe Miller. So Joe Miller up into 5th position. And Junt still remains ahead of Thiago Canola for the lead. Let's see, that also promotes Dave Miller up into 7th. That will mean Gerard Rion up into 8th. Bruno Chacon will be 9th. And Jason White, as long as he stays where he is, will pick up 10th. With Pascal Mikola 13 seconds behind. And Canola now actually a bit further behind David Jun, so possibly lappings forcing Canola to drop back. Now 2.4 seconds the advantage for David Junt. Sorry to hear about your fall, Berlin. I hope, as Angel has said, that you were able to ice it all up, and I think you may be, well, if it gets any worse again, that may be worth a go still. And apologies if that was heard. It looks like David Junt is holding the gap at just over 2 seconds. So I think it'll be very difficult for Thiago to regain that time. Kowalski still in 3rd. Saber still in 4th. Jo Miller still in 5th. Jason White, I think, trying to get the time back. I think he's closed in a little bit on Jo Miller in the last couple of laps. As Thiago Canola does the quickest lap of the race. At least of the cars still running. I think Grant may have done a slightly quicker time at the 1:13.8. So Thiago definitely doing everything in his power to try and get the position back. Dave Miller still in 7th. Gerard Rion up into 8th, as I mentioned earlier. Chacon 9th. Pascal Mikola now in 10th. Also, Jason White has to do a splash and dash towards the end of the race to make it. Well, that's really unfortunate for him. So that is Jason White back into 11th. I wonder if anyone else will have to do a splash before the race is over. Mainly wondering about Jan Kowalski, I think, as he pitted fairly early. Was that actually a splash? It looks like Jason is stuck for quite a while. He may have actually picked up damage before he entered the pits. That's even more unfortunate if that's the case. As David Junt does his quickest lap of the race on the last lap, so responding to the upped pace from Thiago Canola. But still, Thiago was able to close in turn 1 and at the keyhole. Kowalski able to keep the distance at about 8 seconds to David Saber. Jo Miller looks to have stabilized the gap to Jason Whitehead to in the battle for 5th and 6th. And then there's all the larger gaps, so to speak, with Dave Miller in a very steady but consistent drive into 7th. Gerard Rion consistent as well in 8th. Bruno Chacon also very, very consistent indeed in 9th. And Pascal Mikola, after an early unfortunate off at Thunder Valley, trying to get the as much time and positions back as he can. He has 13.6 seconds to make up in the last couple of laps to get past Brunchakon. I think that will be a very tall order. 3 laps to go. Oh dear me, my apologies once again. There we go. And the gap coming down a little bit again. Now just over a second between Yunt and Canola. Canola may be trying for one last do or die few laps here to get the win. Suppose it'll be a bit dependent on what happens with the lap traffic here in the form of David Saber, who very sportingly stays well out of the way of both of them. Kowalski's and Yunt. As we, I think, go on to the final lap. My apologies for dropping a few more frames. My internet's playing up towards the end of the race, of course. Oh, come on. So my apologies for the dropped frames. I'll have a quick look at something. It looks like David Yunt will take the win. Unless something happens. Absolutely. Ugh. Well, unfortunately it is what it is. I hope it's not too bad as people get out and through the S's now. I have no idea why my internet is playing up. Oh, dear me. But Canola now really, as always, and there he goes, takes the win at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Big congratulations to David Yunt there. Second for Thiago Canola. Third is, I think he will have finished after the leaders crossed the line. So third for Jan Kowalski. Fourth for David Saber. Fifth for Joe Miller. Great finish for him. Jason White at sixth. Dave Miller, you finish seventh. Congratulations. Jadrio has finished 8th in the meantime. Brunchakon has finished 9th. Pascal Mikula brings the car home in 10th. My apologies, looks like we're back with full frames now. I have no idea why my internet was playing up there. Jason White finishes 11th in the end. And as I mentioned, Dave Miller now crosses the line to finish 7th. So congratulations for that. And as I mentioned, David Yunt finishes first, Thiago Canola second, Kowalski third, 4th, David Saber. 5th, Joe Miller. 6th, Jason Whited. 7th, as we mentioned, Dave Miller. 8th, Gerard Rion. 9th, Brun Chacon. 10th, Pascal Mikola. And 11th, Jason White. With our retirees being Adam Hackman, Ray Rideau, after a collision between the two, unfortunately, after a spin for Ray. 14th for Grant Rideau, 15th David Yates, 16th Schlapinski, 17th Chapman, 18th Boss, 19th Yannick, 20th Wilkes, and the first retiree, unfortunately, in the race was Alberto Ibanez.
User joined your channel. User joined your channel.
Let's see, before we do the interviews for this race, let's have a quick look back at the trivia that was asked, I think on lap 23 or thereabout. For this event, we had the question for you of from 1982. Who purchased and then made substantial improvements to the Mid-Ohio sports car course? Was it A. Roger Penske, B. Jim Truman, or C. Les Griebling? I know, I think it was Barry Lynn guessed for B. David, Pascal, do you have any guesses or knowledge on this bit of trivia?
Basically missed the question.
Ah, okay.
I would say Penske, but I have no clue.
I only heard like Truman or something, but I think Truman is more like, I don't know. What was it, head of Cart or something? No, wait, Truman was like the owner of the Indianapolis Speedway. I'm not sure. I'm probably going for the first guy.
Penske? Or
yeah, probably.
Okay, Griebling, okay. Well, the actual answer to the trivia is B. Jim Truman. And I believe, as you mentioned, he was the owner of Indianapolis, and he also bought Mid-Ohio back in the day and made some pretty good improvements to the facilities over the years.
So close, but I wasn't sure if somebody like really managed back in the day to get like 2 tracks then up and running, or keep them at a good level.
Well, good on him for managing that. And talking about managing, congratulations, David, on picking up the win here.
Thanks.
And yes, Jason, I have no idea of the history of IndyCar at all. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, David.
I'm sprint racing in Formula 3, but in kart he drives. He sits on a rocket, and I'm quite sure he got low wings or something, but he makes it work incredibly well. And if there's no tire wear or a good exit from a turn, you cannot keep up with him. And I think the moment of the race was when I think Jaco had a spin that David Jake said, and then he dropped ahead of me, and I managed to pass him before the pit stops. My last pit stop myself was didn't call the pits, or they decided to no, we don't lead the race now. We go second and try it again. Had a 17-second pit stop, dropped me behind him, and I gave everything. I could have nearly flown off 2 times on a curb and crashed, but I hung in there, and I tried my best to stay with him. And then, well, it looks like I had a good car on the brakes, so I managed to squeeze past. I didn't mean to be mean, but I needed the opportunity there, and from there on, you were like flying around the track, still in close proximity. So it was a tough battle until the end. So I'm really to take this win, because I don't think we would have either won against Grant. I don't know what happened to him, but he was too far away.
I think in terms of Grant, he had the slightest moment of lapse of concentration, slammed into the wall on the right side, going through the first right-hander of the S's, and the left-hander after the back straight, and then went off in the first right-hander of the S's due to his rear wing dislodging in the first off he had.
Oh no, and it was his favorite track. I really saw it by his pace, incredible driving, and I was like, we're not gonna catch him today. And then I saw him DNF or the dot stationary, and then saw the gap coming down and him DNFing, like, oh no. Because to be honest, from my point of view, I was gonna finish like 4th or something, and then I just somehow managed to extract the point, just risk it really much, and where I come from. So I don't think I would have really had the best look out at the race. Performance was not the perfectest, but in the end, everyone's gonna say, "Oh, David, don't say that you won the race." But I really had to go really strong outside. I misshifted several times. I went on that curb. I could have gone the other way. I could have just spun off and lost it that way. So it was a tough race, and Jaco was a really good rival. So he couldn't make a single mistake. So gotta hand it to him.
Yep, sounds good. Congratulations once again, David, and we of course also have Pascal with us, back racing here in the Skull Bandit machine, shared with Jason Fitch for the championship. And it looked like, apart from your misfortune very early on in the race, like you had some good pace and could have had some really good battles.
Yeah, I mean, it was really unfortunate I kissed the wall there. I think it was David Saber behind me, and I didn't have that much damage, but I think I had a flat tire, and I went into the pits, and that was almost 3 minutes of repair, and then I was like already 3 laps down, 2 or 3 laps down, and I was already kind of thinking, oh well, I'm lost, so that's that. Let's just finish the race to make up the numbers. But then people started dropping out, which it's unfortunate for those who dropped out. But in the end, I managed to get 10th place, and there were a few close calls actually. I do recall, for example, overtaking Bruno Chacon like once or twice, and it was a little bit. For me personally, it was a little bit too close to comfort because I almost ran into him a couple times. But other than that, it was really cool. I must say, I don't know what happened to Jason White, because at that moment when I was about to pass him on track, he pulled into the pits and had a 5 laps long, 5 or 6 minutes basically stop, and I don't know what happened to him. I would have loved to have a battle on track with him, but because I was there were 3 occasions when he was about to put a lap on me, and I managed to get all the way back behind him. So I'm really proud of that, and that's why. That's also kind of why I did all the donuts and at the end, because I must say the car was perfect. It handled like a dream in qualifying as well as in the race. So if I hadn't had that misfortune, I would have probably, probably been in a position to contest for the podium.
That's probably my fault, Pascal. I'll have to apologise. I tipped you to do quite well before the race.
You did it, so you mean to say you jinxed it, huh? Nah, just kidding. It was, I'll take the responsibility for that. I hit the curb in a bad angle, and it just bottomed out on me and just went into the wall.
Yeah, very unfortunate that, but good to see that you managed to extract quite a bit of pace out of the car, and I'd assume you're looking forward to the rest of the championship.
Definitely.
Sounds good. And we also have Dave with us, of course, been with us for the whole race, and you finished 7th, and I assume you're pretty happy with that.
Indeed I am. That's a very enjoyable race, that one. Stuck to the plan of just keep it on the track, keep it steady, keep it consistent. Didn't make any major errors, no spins or big offs. I think I outbraked myself once into the chicane, but that was the sum total of it. And just pick up as things happen in front of me.
Very much so, and seeing as it's a 500-mile race coming up with the Pocono 500, I think it's 2, maybe 3 weeks away. Let's actually have a quick look. 3 weeks away. How do you rate your chances at such a long and possibly grueling, such a long and possibly even more grueling track?
Well, seeing as it's Pocono, it's going to be a very difficult race. That's a track that's definitely out to get you. But I'm looking forward to that. Again, we'll probably follow the same strategy. Just hang on and hope for the best and try not to get caught up in the chaos in front.
Sounds like a very good plan to have indeed, especially for that track. So yeah, before we finish off, let's have a quick look at what is coming up here at HSO. This coming Wednesday we have the International ACV Euro Sprint, second round of the 1995 Super Tourenwagen Championship. On the screen you can see the Audi 80 of Philip Peter, in our series pedaled by Jan Kowalski, who of course had a very good podium finish in the race, so congratulations to him, and hopefully we will see him and many others have another good couple of races on Wednesday. And another 2 weeks from that we have the Preis der Stadt Wunsdorf, which is the third round of the 1995 Super Tourenwagen Championship. That will take place at the Österreichring, which will probably be a very tricky event indeed. A very, very high speed track in machinery that is compared to modern day standards probably quite downforcey, but I think understeer will be part of the course over there. And then of course 3 weeks away we have the Quaker State 500, round 11 of 15 of this 1988 kart championship at Pocono, which will surely be a stonker indeed. But yeah, any final thoughts, Dave, before we cap off the broadcast.
Can't think of anything else myself other than it's been another excellent race in the IndyCars, and again looking forward to the next one.
Very much fair enough. So yeah, a good race to watch. Some very good, hard but fair battles out on track, and unfortunately for us, the championship gap has been widened slightly, but still 4 events left in the championship, so it's all still up for grabs and to play for. So we'll see you on the air in 3 weeks' time for the Quake Estate 500 at Pocono. But until then, take care and good night.